It is madness. It is anarchy. It is bedlam. It's chaos in the streets. It's cats living with dogs insanity going on in the world of mixed martial arts. The last 48 hours, I believe, have been among the most hectic that I've ever recalled for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And this video is something of a special report about what exactly has gone down and really who's to blame and what is what, and this pell-mell that has happened in the wake of UFC 151 getting canceled. For those of you that really are not up to snuff on what has gone down, what happened was on Thursday, the head of the UFC, Dana White, had a conference call to announce that Dan Henderson was pulling out of his fight against Jon Jones, and Jon Jones was offered a couple of replacement fights. Everyone except for one, Chael P. Sonnen, turned down the fight, and upon getting assigned Chael Sonnen's opponent, Jon Jones' handler Greg Jackson said, "No, that's cool, we don't want this, we're turning the fight down." Okay, as a result, Dana White said, you know what, we're just going to cancel the entire show. They've never canceled a show ever in the history of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, so it's kind of a big deal. So anyway, that was really a level 10 dookie storm for the organization. People were asking, really who's to blame for the show getting canceled? Is it Jon Jones? Did Dana White mishandle the whole thing? And, really, what's on the up and up here? So anyway, we wait a day, and things get even crazier somehow. It begins with the fact that the Jon Jones title fight will now be going to a guy named Lyoto Machida at September 22nd in Toronto. Well, there's another conference call, and guess what? Lyoto Machida, he's backing out. So they call up a couple other guys for replacements. Shogun Hua was one of them. Guess what? He's not fighting either. So obviously it's kind of clear. Well, obviously this means you're going to have Jones Sonnen on 9/22, right? Well, no, that's not the fight that's happening. There's lots of other guys that could possibly, step up to the plate. I hear Chris Weidman is actually one of the guys that offered to step up to 205 for the fight, but that's not happening. Ariel Helwani actually broke news that to save UFC 151, Anderson Silva is willing to fight anyone at light heavyweight except for Jon Jones on 8 days notice. But that's not happening because the show got canceled. And what's really hilarious is the UFC is actually keeping their titling in place. So even though there was never ever a show called UFC 151, the next show in Toronto will be called UFC 152 anyway. So we're going straight from UFC 150 to UFC 152. So there you go. Take that, nominalism. So anyway, if all these things go down and it's finally announced that on September 22nd, Jon Jones will in fact be defending his light heavyweight championship of the world against, drumroll please, Vitor Belfort, as in the guy that had his face kicked off by Anderson Silva last February. Well, anyway, he's getting a light heavyweight title shot. Now, I know what you're thinking. That does not make a lick of sense. But when you really think about it, no, it still doesn't make any sense, I suppose. It's a really, really horrible looking matchup on paper. It seems like a complete and utter cop-out. And it's going to be interesting, I suppose. It's a pretty stacked card otherwise. But you have to be wondering, exactly what is going on with the higher-ups at the UFC. Dana White, I think, has done a really, really horrible job of, sort of rectifying these woes. And a lot of people have kind of turned towards Jon Jones. He's being painted as the bad guy. There's these Twitter updates saying, oh, well, because of Jon Jones, all these guys backstage that were going to be working at the show, the undercard fighters, the guys selling water, the technical crew, guess what? They're not getting a paycheck. So that shows you how much Jon Jones cares about the organization and the people working in it, which I think is, complete and utter BS, because guess what, folks? Jon Jones didn't cancel this show. He didn't make that executive call. He doesn't have that power. Dana White is the guy that canceled the show. He's the reason why people, are not getting paid. If you're an undercard fighter, don't be mad at Jon Jones. Be mad at, the guy that's actually cutting your check, who will not be cutting you a check now. I think it's a pretty cut and dry example of, really horrible management. And Dana White, God bless him. He's done so much for the sport. He's pretty much single-handedly responsible for bringing it to the mainstream. But, just ever since the Fox deal, he's just acted a straight-up fool sometimes. In fact, I'm kind of wondering, like, if en route to sign the UFC on Fox paperwork, that he didn't, run over a gypsy or something, because this organization just had phenomenal bad luck ever since. If your top draw is not only getting injured but retiring, you lost Brock Lesnar. GSP has been on the shelf for almost 2 years now. You can't have the fights happen. Everybody's pulling out. You've got controversies, scandals involving steroids and a white collar fraud, and all these other horrible things are just really, really taking a toll on the business. The question now is, where do we go? As I said before, don't blame, your top draw. That's not the problem. This is an organizational problem. You got guys in the administration. You got guys like Joe Silva. You got Dana White. You got all these higher ups there who are tasked with putting out a good product. They're in charge of salvaging things. It's up to them to look at the paper and what they have and their resources and tune it into something that's desirable. If you look across the board, UFC buy rates have been down, and they've been down for a long time. I think there's been one show this year which has surpassed 1 million buys. And really the last 2 years, actually, pay-per-view buy rates have really plummeted. And I think this is a sign of a greater problem. I'm not saying Dana White, he's on the verge of being ousted. But this is the kind of thing where if you look at the writing on the wall, there's something really, really wrong going on with the management within the organization. And I think this might just be that crucial first step we're seeing. When Dana White ends up in a padded room somewhere in a straitjacket, screaming, stuff about Alistair Overeem over and over again, while some, behavior analyst stands there with a notepad trying to figure out what the hell happened. Well, the last 2 days is what happened. And I don't know. This could be that big wake-up call that not everything is well in the world of mixed martial arts. And, yeah. I think these are going to be 2 days that live in infamy for quite some time. Yeah.